Fame, fortune, #1 hits, millions of screaming fans. Some of the biggest names in pop had it all. Then they tried to come back. We're talking comebacks that made everyone cringe, albums nobody asked for, and tours canceled because no one bought tickets. Over 15 entries, this countdown escalates from awkward misfires to full-blown career catastrophes. Some of the names on this list will genuinely shock you. These are 15 pop comebacks that embarrassed everyone. Let's start at number 15, with an artist who went from dominating the Hot 100 to barely cracking the Billboard 200. Number 15, Iggy Azalea. Remember when Fancy was everywhere, from car stereos to high school proms? Back in 2014, she was the first non-American female rapper to crash the Billboard Top 3, moving over 50,000 albums in a single week. Fast forward to her 2019 comeback, In My Defense, and the story flips. The album barely squeaked into the Billboard 200, debuting outside the top 50 with a first-week tally that would not fill a mid-size venue. The TikTok generation shrugged, the lead single fizzled, and attempts to spark a viral dance challenge landed with a thud. Meanwhile, the deluxe vinyl rollout left retailers with pallets of unsold records, a six-figure write-off. The tour was downsized by 70% before it even started. And as old controversies bubbled up again, Iggy pivoted to OnlyFans, chasing relevance on a different platform. If you thought this was awkward, just wait. These flops only get messier. Number 14. Nelly Furtado once ruled the charts with Promiscuous and the genre-bending explosion of Loose, which opened at number 1 with over 220,000 first-week sales. Fast forward 6 years, The Spirit Indestructible arrived in 2012 and barely made a ripple. In its debut week, it sold just 9,000 copies in the United States. The album missed the UK Top 40 entirely, and it faded from the Billboard 200 almost overnight. The contrast could not be starker. One era was defined by radio anthems and global tours, the next by a near-invisible rollout, minimal promotion, a blink-and-you-miss-it media circuit, and a streaming landscape that had already moved on left Furtado's comeback dead on arrival. It is a textbook case of what happens when you let the hype machine stall for too long. And if you thought fading into obscurity was rough, the next entries prove there is plenty of room to fall even further. Number 13, Vanilla Ice once ruled the world with Ice Ice Baby, turning a goofy pop rap anthem into a chart-topping phenomenon. By 1998, though, the party was over. His next move was pure chaos. Enter Hard to Swallow, a new metal reinvention so desperate it left fans and critics in open-mouthed disbelief. Gone was the playful swagger, replaced by a tortured, try-hard aggression that critics roasted as clueless rage. The album did not even graze the Billboard 200, an epic nosedive from his debut's #1 peak in multi-platinum sales. Instead of a comeback, Ice landed in the bargain bin, then quietly pivoted to reality TV and house-flipping shows. When your genre switch is so off-base that even nostalgia cannot save you, that is not reinvention, it is self-sabotage. And if you thought this was the most awkward pivot in pop history, brace yourself. The next entries prove the cringe can always go deeper. Number 12. Zayn Malik once had the world at his feet. Pillow Talk shot straight to number 1, and his brooding R&B sound made him the poster boy for post-One Direction cool. Fast forward to 2024, and Zayn's comeback, Room Under the Stairs, left even his most loyal fans scratching their heads. Instead of doubling down on what made him a streaming magnet, Zayn swerved into country folk territory. Think acoustic guitars, Nashville twang, and a total abandonment of his pop R&B roots. The result? A brutal 62% drop in Spotify streams compared to his last album, and a Billboard 200 debut that stalled at number 33, his lowest ever. The algorithm gods weren't amused. The album was yanked from Spotify's New Music Friday playlist after just one day, vanishing from every major editorial slot. When you lose both your core fan base and the streaming robots in one move, you know the rebrand has gone off the rails. And if you think one genre pivot can tank a career, just wait until you see what happens when a megastar bets the house on nostalgia and loses everything. Number 11. Justin Bieber once had the world chanting every word to "Sorry and Love Yourself," with Purpose exploding out of the gate with 649,000 first-week sales. Fast forward to 2020, and the comeback album Changes delivered a different kind of headline. Yummy became a meme, not a movement, and the internet roasted Bieber's desperate attempts to game the charts. Fans caught on to the streaming bundle tricks, and accusations of manipulation swirled as Yummy stalled at number 2 on the Hot 100, never reaching the top spot despite a viral campaign that felt more like a public relations stunt than a pop moment. Changes limped in with numbers that paled next to his 2015 peak, and critics called the album soulless and repetitive. Instead of a victory lap, Bieber found himself the punchline of TikTok and Twitter, with even loyal believers asking what happened to the spark. And if you think meme mockery is brutal, the next comeback on the list proves that even platinum-selling bands can faceplant even harder. Number 10. No Doubt once defined the 90s with Tragic Kingdom, an album so massive it went 10 times platinum and made ska punk cool for a minute. But when the band reunited for Push and Shove in 2012, the magic was nowhere to be found. Instead of a bold new chapter, fans got a comeback that sounded more like a contract obligation than a creative rebirth. The lead single Settle Down barely crawled to number 34 on the Hot 100, and the album itself debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, then fell off the radar almost instantly. Critics called the project uninspired and stuck in the past, with Rolling Stone flat out wondering if anyone involved even wanted to be there. The reunion tour fizzled, and the band faded back into hiatus, leaving their legacy untarnished, but their comeback instantly forgettable. If you thought a lukewarm reunion was awkward, the next entries prove solo stars can crash even harder. Sia once soared with Chandelier, flipping the pop world upside down with powerhouse vocals and a face you almost never saw. But in 2024, her comeback album Reasonable Woman landed with a thud that echoed far beyond the charts. The numbers alone sting, about 9,000 first-week units, and a debut at a dismal 153 on the Billboard 200, an unthinkable drop for an artist who once ruled both radio and streaming. But the real torpedo came from outside the studio. The fallout from her film Music, already slammed by autism advocacy groups and shadowed by online petitions, spilled straight into the album rollout. Fans and critics alike questioned her judgment, and the backlash burned through any remaining hype. Streams for Reasonable Woman cratered, falling over 70% from her 2016 peak. When a pop icon's legacy gets buried under controversy and the music barely makes a ripple, you know the comeback curse has claimed another victim. And if you think a PR disaster cannot get worse, just wait. The next entry shows what happens when an artist's momentum vanishes entirely. 8th place goes to Normani, who once had the entire internet convinced she was pop's next main character. Back in 2019, motivation dropped like a cultural nuke, viral choreography, non-stop TikTok edits, and a fan base foaming for her debut album. Then came the blackout, 5 years of silence, cryptic tweets, and endless rumors while streaming algorithms quietly moved on. By the time Dopamine finally arrived in 2024, the hype had evaporated. First-week numbers barely scraped 10,000 units, less than a tenth of what her viral single pulled in just days. TikTok engagement was a tiny fraction of her earlier peak, as Gen Z's attention span had long since reset to 0. Dopamine's rollout became a masterclass in how not to build momentum, with every delay draining what little algorithmic juice was left. When a debut album lands after 6 years and nobody cares, it is not just a flop. It is a warning to every young star banking on nostalgia. And if you think a youth-driven faceplant stings, the next entries show what happens when legacy icons try to turn back the clock and end up breaking it. Number 7. Christina Aguilera once defined the pop powerhouse lane, belting out beautiful and reinventing herself with every era. Back to Basics delivered a retro soul masterclass and a monster debut with 346,000 first-week sales. But when Bionic dropped in 2010, the world had changed, and so had the rules. Aguilera swung hard into electropop, hoping to catch a futuristic wave, but instead she ran smack into Lady Gaga's cultural tsunami. Bionic opened with just 110,000 copies, barely a third of her previous launch, and critics called the album a confused identity crisis, torn between Android club bangers and half-hearted ballads. The timing could not have been worse. Lady Gaga's fame monster was dominating every headline, every playlist, every award show. Aguilera's attempt to outdo Lady Gaga left her looking like a legacy act chasing trends instead of setting them. The flop was so loud, she pivoted straight to reality TV the next year. And if you think a mistimed comeback is tragic, just wait until you hear what happens when a pop icon releases an album on the single worst day in modern history. Number 6, Mariah Carey was untouchable in the 90s, a chart-destroying powerhouse with more number ones than anyone could count, and a vocal range that left the competition gasping. But nothing could have prepared her or anyone else for the disaster that was Glitter. The album and its movie companion dropped on September 11th, 2001, a date that instantly overshadowed any hope for a pop comeback. With the world reeling, Glitter opened at number 7 on the Billboard 200, selling under 92,000 copies in its first week, a career low for Carey at the time. The film bombed even harder, drawing scathing reviews in empty theaters. The rollout spiraled further with that infamous appearance on TRL, where a visibly distressed Mariah handed out ice cream and left viewers genuinely worried. It was not just a flop, it was a pop culture train wreck, torpedoed by timing no public relations team could spin. Years later, Carey would claw her way back with the emancipation of Mimi, but Glitter remains the cautionary tale about how even the biggest stars can get blindsided by fate. And if you think bad timing is the worst thing that can happen, just wait until the next entry, where financial excess and ego meet a brick wall. Number 5. Guns N' Roses once defined rock excess, packing stadiums, and rewriting the rulebook with appetite for destruction. By the late 1990s, Axl Rose had morphed from rock god to studio hermit, pouring 15 years and a reported $13 million into the black hole known as Chinese democracy. The hype was biblical, a comeback album so delayed it became a meme, with Best Buy betting big on an exclusive release. Reality check. When it finally dropped in 2008, Chinese Democracy debuted at number 3 with 261,000 copies, then face-planted. Best Buy was left sitting on $1.2 million worth of unsold CDs, warehouses full of shattered dreams, and shrink-wrapped disappointment. Critics called it overcooked and out of touch, a relic from a different era in a world that had moved on. The lesson? No amount of studio wizardry or vanity spending can buy relevance if the culture has already closed the door. And if you think burning $13 million on a retail disaster is bad, just wait. The next entries prove ego and nostalgia can sink even bigger ships. Number 4. Justin Timberlake used to be untouchable. From the Future Sex Love Sounds era, where every single felt like an event, to his Super Bowl moments and Saturday Night Live skits, Timberlake was the guy who could do no wrong. Fast forward to Man of the Woods in 2018, and the wheels started to come off. The album's awkward pivot from sleek pop to lumberjack cosplay left fans and critics baffled, and while it still managed 293,000 first-week sales, the buzz was more about flannel shirts than hit singles. But the real embarrassment hit with Everything I Thought It Was. In 2024, a comeback so poorly received, it set a new low for Timberlake's career. The numbers tell the story. 110,000 first-week units, the worst debut he has ever posted. And if the music was not enough of a letdown, the public relations meltdown sealed the deal. Britney Spears' memoir painted Timberlake as pop's ultimate villain, and the headlines only got messier with a DUI arrest days after the album dropped. Instead of a victory lap, Timberlake's return became a case study in how to torch goodwill on every front, creative, commercial, and personal. When even a megastar cannot buy a break, you know the comeback curse is real. And if you think this stacked disaster is as bad as it gets, just wait for the next entry, where a celebrity's flop burns through more cash than a Vegas casino. Number 3. Jennifer Lopez once reigned as pop's ultimate triple threat, spinning chart toppers, blockbuster movies, and red carpet dominance into a brand that defined the early 2000s. But in 2024, she tried to recapture that magic with This Is Me. Now, a comeback so disastrous it could make even the most reckless Vegas gambler blush. The numbers are brutal. After pouring a reported $20 million into a Bennifer-fueled rollout, complete with a cinematic tie-in and endless tabloid headlines, the album landed with a soft thud at number 38 on the Billboard 200, moving about 14,000 pure sales in its first week. The planned stadium tour was quietly scrapped after sluggish ticket sales made it clear that nostalgia alone could not fill arenas. As if the financial hemorrhage was not enough, Ben Affleck divorce rumors started swirling just as the project flopped, turning Lopez's personal narrative into meme fodder. It is a masterclass in how to misread the moment, betting big on old-school celebrity drama in an era that demands viral hits and algorithmic relevance. If you thought burning through $20 million for a flop album was peak humiliation, just wait, because the next entry sets a record for the steepest sales drop in pop history. Number 2. Katy Perry's pop empire once looked untouchable. Back in 2010, Teenage Dream did not just debut at number 1 with 192,000 sold, and it spawned 5 chart-topping singles and turned Perry into a cultural juggernaut. Fast forward to 2024, and her comeback album, 143, delivered the single biggest first-week sales collapse in modern pop history. The numbers are jaw-dropping, just 48,000 total units out of the gate, a 75% nosedive from her peak, and a Billboard 200 debut at number 6 that vanished in under 2 weeks. Critics did not just shrug, they pounced. 143 scored a brutal 31 on Metacritic, the lowest ever for a solo female pop album, with reviews calling it generic synth-pop pastiche and nostalgia without innovation. But the real torpedo was Perry's decision to bring Dr. Luke back into the fold, crediting him on 3 tracks despite years of public backlash and a still fresh legal battle with Keisha. The internet erupted, #BoycottPerry trended, advocacy groups called for a radio freeze, and even fellow celebrities piled on. Instead of a victory lap, Perry's return became a case study in how to turn a legacy into a cautionary tale. And if you think a 75% sales drop and an ethics firestorm is as bad as it gets, just wait for the final entry, where the only thing left to lose is your own reputation. And finally, in first place, Fergie's Double Duchess stands as the undisputed queen of comeback disasters. Flashback to 2006, when the Duchess turned Fergie into a solo superstar, launching bangers like Fergalicious and Big Girls Don't Cry straight to the top of the charts. She had Black Eyed Peas clout, Grammy wins, and a pop persona that could do no wrong. But after an 11-year vanishing act, Fergie's return in 2017 was less a royal homecoming and more a lesson in how to lose a fanbase in real time. Double Duchess arrived with sky-high expectations and a rollout that was pure chaos. Instead of a headline-grabbing drop, fans got a piecemeal visual album strategy. Music videos trickled out over months, leaving everyone confused about when the actual album was coming. When it finally landed, the numbers were brutal. Just 21,000 first-week sales, barely scraping into the Billboard 200 at number 19. For an artist who once owned the pop landscape, that's not just a stumble, that's a faceplant. Critics shrugged, calling the album dated and uneven. The label drama didn't help either. Fergie split from Interscope right after release, and any hope for a proper tour or promo push evaporated. The project's awkward rollout, weak sales, and critical indifference turned Double Duchess into a cautionary tale for comeback hopefuls everywhere. Nostalgia alone won't sell records in the streaming era, especially if you show up late, with a rollout that leaves your own fans asking, wait, did I miss something? In the end, Fergie's return didn't just flop. It redefined the art of the comeback crash and burn. Across all 15 faceplants, one pattern screams out. Pop's past glories are a trap, not a roadmap. Every misfire here tried to bottle lightning twice, ignoring that the charts, fans, and industry have already moved on. In pop, nostalgia sells, but only if you evolve. Comebacks aren't about reliving the glory days, they're about rewriting them. Who do you think had the most cringeworthy flop? Drop your pick below.